Abigail, good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to connect with you today and have you on and have the audience get to know you like I've gotten to know you. So let's get right into it because I know you've got a lot to cover today. And first of all, love if you'd introduce yourself, where you're at in the world, a little bit about yourself, and yeah, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
My the full name is Abigail Kirby Conklin, and as a writer, that's the byline. That's the name I use when I'm publishing work. I'm a poet. And then the rest of my life, I'm pretty much Abby exclusively, except for the occasional ambitious person who tries to pull an Abigail on me. Um, and I currently live in New York City. I'm a New York City native, but we moved to Northern Virginia when I was in elementary school. Then I went to college in Michigan, and then I wound up back on the East Coast in my early 20s. So now I'm a professional in the education world. I work for a small company that does college and career access for public school students. I write curriculum. I work in sort of like facilitating restorative justice practices in the classroom and bringing support services with a career and college orientation into schools that would otherwise not have those resources. And then I'm also a poet, and I like very long walks that go in no direction. And I I can drink more coffee than you. Also, of late, like 'tis the season from maybe November until March, I can eat more clementines than you before they're out of season.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
yes, so I have many skills. I am the Liam Neeson of acidic consumption, I guess, between clementines and coffee.
Well, I've decided one thing, and I'm gonna rebuttal you on one other thing.
If it's coffee, it's not fair because you're taller than me, and so you have more room in you for coffee.
Yeah, but this is not what you're going to be expecting. So first of all, I'm not even gonna try and pull an Abigail on you today. You're gonna be Abby for the purposes of our episode
That's
because
good.
you gave me the out. So you'll forever known be Abby to me for the rest of our time together. Two,
All right.
I don't drink coffee,
Oh, you
so
you you
so
healthy good person.
it's not even a health thing for me. I've just never gotten into it. I don't really know why people ask me. It's weird living in New York. I drink green tea. Like I
Mhm.
have a green tea maybe 4 or 5 times a week, usually during on weekdays. But yeah, I've actually never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Well, and so, I drink coffee because I drink it black, like I'll find my way, like milk will find its way into my coffee if it's too acidic or I don't love it, but like
Hmm.
I love black coffee and I was exposed to it. Like that's just what my parents drank when I was growing up. But then
Hmm.
when I was in college, someone made coffee in the dorms and I couldn't find a polite way to say, no, you're in my dorm room. You just made coffee. I refuse to have any. And so I drank it and there was no milk. And I was like, oh, fine. And I tasted it. And somehow my palate had expanded in the year I turned 18. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I really love the taste of coffee. Is really like the ritual of it brings me closer to my family wherever I am, but also the taste of it.
That totally makes sense. And I feel like to work in the educational field, like my brother is a teacher,
Mm.
and he drinks a ton of coffee. It almost seems to me that you don't get a job unless you drink coffee in the educational field. Like it's kind of a requirement of the job.
I mean,
Maybe you
certainly,
need the caffeine. I don't know.
yeah. I think caffeine certainly makes a presence. I know plenty of educators who double down on green tea as well. I think it. Uh, yeah. What does your brother teach?
He used to be a fourth grade teacher in Washington D.C. Now he is actually a teacher's coach. So he works for the principal at a charter school, an elementary charter school in D.C. And I don't exactly know what that means, other than I know he doesn't have his own classroom, but he's
Yeah.
always observing. He's always observing teachers and giving feedback and coaching to teachers on all sorts of things that teachers would get feedback on.
Yeah, so what I do is actually sort of similar because I place teaching artists in public school classrooms where we've been hired as a company. And
Hmm.
then I'm in the schools constantly at my portfolio of public schools, observing my teaching artists and helping them improve their practices. I'm just also writing the curriculum and like doing the administrative organization behind the scenes.
Gotcha. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
sound similar. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to have the conversation with you today, and we'll be covering all about what you do, about your poetry, and I'm sure we'll uncover some nuggets about Abby as we go through this as well. So, as I always like to do on the show, I like to talk about for a second about how we met. So, Abby and I were in an improv class together, level 1 improv at the
Mm-hmm.
Pit, otherwise known as the People's Improv Theater here in New York City. And I think, man, I think it was October of 18, if I'm not mistaken, is when that class started. So that's when we met. We met each other. We got a
No,
chance to.
August. That was August.
August of 18. Yeah. So we got a chance to get goofy with each other. And as you call in the improv scene, we got a chance to play together, which was really fun getting to know you that way. You're a hilarious improv actress. And we had some
fun. Dear listeners, I am not an excellent improv actress, but I can be a good faker.
Yeah. Don't let her fool you.
Well.
So as I like to do,
yes,
I always like to talk about our first impressions of each other. And because it's my show and I'm the host, you get to go first, Abby. So what was your first impression of me when we met?
So I realize I do remember when I first met you because I had to miss our first level 1 class because of weather and travel. So I came in the second class, and I didn't know what faces I was looking for. Like the screen at the front of the studio area said like what number room I would be in for my class, but I didn't know what teacher I didn't know who looked like what, I didn't know what to expect. And you and the person who was teaching our class that day, who was a sub, you two had found like rolly chairs instead of sitting in the pews that line that studio space.
Yeah.
So everyone else was milling around and sitting on pews, and you and it was
Jason.
It was Jason. You guys had found those chairs, and of course they've been sat on so many times that like the backs went way back. So you both were just like sort of floating on the Dead Sea in your rolly chairs, and you were very tall and he was very short. And I was like, one of them is probably the instructor because I know I'm looking for a man, and they're both in rolly chairs. And I was 50% right.
Holy cow. I do not remember that at all. So I'm impressed with your memory right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but also then you were one of the only people in our class who had a kid. So that was noteworthy to me too, because she was little when you started and you were so excited. Oh my goodness. And
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Wow, your memory is amazing. Cause I was like, I don't remember. I remember having Jason as a sub. I don't remember the rolly chair thing at all.
Yeah.
So maybe when you're a little bit younger than you are, or younger than me, like you are, maybe I'm getting old. My memory's going, but thank you for the first impression. That's awesome. Yeah. So I do remember you not being there the first week, which is a kind of intimidating place to start an improv group from, because the first class is you do like an icebreaker. So Ron was our teacher, and you do icebreakers and get to know each other a little bit. So for you to pop in the second week, which I remember was a little intimidating. So I remember you as being, I think the word would be just, I guess, a bit shy or reserved.
Yeah.
And I think that's likely just from, one, I think you're naturally a bit introverted, but two, like the intimidation factor of like, oh, these people have met before, and now, hi, I'm new, and you guys practiced some stuff last week, and I don't know what that thing is, but now I'm supposed to go and do it with you. So my guess is that my impression of you was really mostly from the place of, whoa, this is like, I don't know what to do, because I'm the kid coming into school the second week of school after the first week when everybody else kind of got to know each other.
Yeah, the nerves of that combined with once I realized the teacher was a sub for that week, so I realized I would have to be the new kid again the following week when I finally met whoever the teacher was, compounded my anxiety. But then also and this is actually something I've struggled with in the improv world as a whole, like walking into that classroom and seeing that it was, 7 men, myself, and then one other young woman, really, like, I was not thrilled about that. I don't love being in dominantly male spaces, especially when humor's on the line, because it can
Yeah.
go horribly wrong. And especially,
Yes.
like, I think we were all white in that room too. So I just
Yep.
walked in, I had that thought of like, what am I doing here? I am perpetuating, like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I signed up for. So
Yeah.
it was, yeah, I have no doubt that it took a while, because I remember eventually I got loud and obnoxious like everyone else over the course of that class, but I'm
Speak for
sure,
yourself.
yeah, hey. Um, uh, Certainly that first class, I was just sort of,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm thinking about my level 2 class, and it was all white people, and it was about 50-50 female male.
mhm.
So I don't know if it's just the way it goes, if it's just averages or what, but either way, we all survived, and here we are today. So
Indeed.
let's get into it, Abby. Are you ready?
So ready, born ready.
First question for you. What's
Okay.
something you nerd out? What's something that you nerd out about?
Food, cooking. I've been reading. I think I read my first sort of chef or food memoir when I was 11. Like 11 or 12. I read cookbooks obsessively. Um, and I have a food intolerance. I can't eat wheat, amongst a couple other things, for some health issues. And so I really love reading cookbooks that are not inherently gluten free, and then messing with them to make recipes accessible for me.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and I also really love reading people's memoirs or reflections at the tops of recipes. If it's not a full memoir, I really love reading about people's relationships and histories and memories as relates to food. Because that's how
Mm,
so much of my memory is made up of like snapshots of cooking something, watching a loved one cooking something, um, or like, if it was shopping, whatever, pursuit of food or sharing of food in some capacity.
yeah.
Yeah, I nerd out super hard.
Nice. Did you grow up in a cook and chef family? Like, not necessarily that people did that for a living, but was food always a big thing in your family?
Yeah, both of my parents started cooking for themselves basically for necessity when they were pretty young. And so they both cooked as my brother and I were growing up. And they were 50-50 trying new recipes and then just doing whatever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And the kitchen was the hub generally. I mean, my brother and I, probably until our final 2 years of high school, whenever, like, the homework probably really got obnoxiously demanding in high school for us, sophomore or junior year. And then we had to start doing homework in our rooms. But up until I was 13 or 14, I did my homework at the table next to the kitchen almost every night. Just like the kitchen was where our family existed.
Well, that makes sense. Cool. So if you were gonna, what's your go-to dish? Like, if you're got a hot date, or you're trying to impress somebody, or you just want to have a family, where what's your go-to dish that you like to cook for people?
I go through phases. This past summer, I spent a lot of time sautéing mushrooms in butter and chili pepper, and then
Mm,
tossing. And so, making a fake carbonara, basically, I would make gluten-free pasta or spaghetti squash, toss the hot pasta item with beaten up egg, and the heat would cook the egg as I tossed it, and then putting in the buttery mushrooms, and then putting a bunch of Parmesan cheese on them. So that was my phase over the summer and well into the fall. Right now, I really love roasting wedges of cabbage. They take on a sweetness, and then you can add thyme or basil, and then you can eat them with butter, or you can saute them with soy sauce and eat them over rice. And so that's not really a dish, but like that's the thing I'm sort of fixated on right now. And I've
yeah.
also been making I really like cardamom, so I've been making desserts with cardamom a lot. I've been baking the same version of this one oatmeal cookie for weeks and making my roommates crazy because I'm trying to get the cardamom to come out right.
Hmm.
And making a pudding and doing the same thing. So like everyone's benefiting, but also I'm sure everyone would like something different. But
That's
it's
funny.
satisfying. I mean, after this, whenever like and I'm off the clock later in the evening, I'm gonna be working on um taking you can make better hummus if you take the little skins off of chickpeas, even if they've been canned. If you
Hmm.
remove the little skins, it'll be a smoother hummus. And so, like, I'm spending my evening cleaning a bunch of chickpeas. So it's very much like I fixate on something in food and I slowly work it.
Yeah. I will not be spending my evening peeling or taking the skins off the chickpeas. I didn't know that was a thing.
You're welcome.
So yeah, thank you very much. I learned something new that I will have no interest in doing, but at least
And you'll
have
never
fun.
use it, but it will be a good party trick.
A good party trick to take. Hey guys, who wants to take the skin off these chickpeas? Good times.
Look, the next time that you're miserable at a holiday party, you can go into the kitchen, find someone's pantry, and pull out some chickpeas and make best friends with everyone because you'll make hummus. Like, I don't know why you are not
That's
couching
true.
gratitude right now.
No, that is thank you for the reframe. That is actually a really good point. I didn't think of it that way because I don't know anybody who doesn't like hummus. So
Bingo.
yes, nice, cool. That's funny. I'm just picturing you in the kitchen at a party. You're like, sorry guys, I'd love to come out and play board games with you or listen to music and dance, but sorry, I'm busy peeling skin off the chickpeas. I'll see you in a couple hours. That sounds
And
like a very very tedious process.
yes, but it's meditative, which is something you also find in reading food memoirs. The number of people who love, the repetition of chopping of manipulating a food stuff from one form into another and just watching space, the change in space and shape occur. I think that's something across the board between like professional chefs and home cooks where it just sort of my dad and I talk on Sunday afternoons and it'll be like I pick up the phone, I'm like, what are you cooking? And he goes, what are you
Mm,
cooking? Because that's what we're doing.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Next question for you.
Hmm.
What is something that is inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's? And I'm going to caveat that you can't answer with peeling skin off chickpeas.
I only like to do that in front of people. I'm sure this won't surprise you, but I get invited to lots of parties.
I'm not surprised.
Uh, so, I mean, something that's inside my comfort zone is reading my poetry in front of a room full of strangers or
Hmm.
people I know. I have read poems about sex and relationships in front of my parents. I have read poems that are about mental illness in front of an audience of people who some of whom I know are severely mentally ill. Like
Wow.
when I am telling honest stories in my poetry, and I also do stand-up storytelling, and so the same thing, like if I am performing my poetry or if I am doing a stand-up story and it is an honest one in that like it is something I experienced it or I am writing it, I've written it as a respectful take on something that I imagined. I am in my comfort zone doing that. I feel it to be a worthwhile thing to be doing. But
Hmm.
increasingly, I hear from people after my performances. People are just like, "I could never do that. How do you do that?" And it's just one of those things, being on stage and acting. I tried singing in public for the first time in years, a couple weeks ago, and that was really
Hmm.
scary for me.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just that very fine line of like if it is something that I'm fully responsible for, I guess, and am proud of or comfortable with risking, I'll get up on a mic in front of anyone. I don't give a goddamn.
Yeah. So you don't? Do you get any sort of nerves anymore?
I think I just get excited.
Yeah. So just excited nerves, but you're not nervous anymore.
No, because I'm ready to go. I want to be up there. Like
Yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
it definitely. I could be a diva in that capacity. Like I want to be on stage. I want people to be listening to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So reversing that question,
Hmm.
and what is something that is outside your comfort zone that is likely inside of somebody else's comfort zone?
Um. So I put three things here. Um. In my preparatory notes. I wrote confrontation, uh, pre-calculus, and um and
Pre-calculus. That's amazing.
as as a woman wearing tight or like proverbially classic feminine clothing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel safe or comfortable generally dressed like as like fully femme. Like generally if you see me out in the street, I am wearing at least one men's article of clothing, even if I'm
Mm-hmm.
getting away with it because I'm like wearing women's trousers and like a shoe with a heel. I'm still in some way, I struggle really hard with feeling exposed or feeling safe in my body. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I watch women in public all the time just like, "Oh, you're wearing that cool thing that like touches you all the way around and you're so fine with it. I'm jealous." So that's really not my comfort zone. And I never took pre-calc because I was not good enough at math. So I know that if my life were on the line, I would be cock.
Yeah. Me too. I hated math.
There we
So,
go.
the question for you on the clothing:
Uh-huh.
do you want to be comfortable with it, or is this something that you've just kind of accepted as like this is how I want to operate in the world of not not perhaps like always having one piece of more masculine clothing? Are you good with that, or is this something that you're actually working towards, or like where are you at in your process of that? Because I've never actually heard anybody say that before, and I'm interested to hear more about how that goes for you.
So I'm in a really cool place with it right now. Because just like as larger context, when we moved from Brooklyn, New York, when I was little to Virginia,
Hmm.
living in Virginia, that was also sorry.
Yep. By
Ambulance.
the way, we are recording in New York City, so we're good. That is this is real life New York City. You got an ambulance going by. You can hear it.
There are emergencies everywhere. When we moved to Virginia, that was the first time in my life that I found out that women were not the same as men, that girls were not the same as boys. Like I knew distantly in the back of my head that there was a difference, but I had never really been confronted with the fact like how I was supposed to dress to like to gain for particular reasons to be attractive to someone else, not just dressing because I wanted to wear it for myself. I didn't realize that girls weren't supposed to necessarily be the smartest ones in the room and they were supposed to shut up. And so after my first year of school in Virginia, I cut all my hair off and I started passing as a boy. And I passed until um I this is in one of my poems. It's a joke I've made many times. Like puberty hit in the rudest way possible and I couldn't pass as a boy anymore because of my
Hmm.
body. Um but it's funny, I never identified really as like trans, never really crossed my mind. I don't think that was ever the question. The question was not feeling safe or seen as a
Hmm.
girl. And so I figured that I would be more respected and be safer from men being a problem for me if I could pass as one of them. And so
Mm.
now, if I started doing that when I was 9 and now I am 27. So let's say at this point, almost 20 years into that sort of process of what safe feels like. Also now, what does business casual look like while still feeling safe and appropriate in the workplace, which has been very difficult for me.
Hmm.
I'm getting to a place where I'm learning, okay, this is, how far I can push myself with a neckline or the cut of a pair of trousers or how long or short a sleeve is. And now it's just cool. Now it's just sort of a jigsaw process of, oh, what will work for me today? And I'll still sort of look like the slightly contrary person that I know that I am.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I wear boots or shoes with some kind of loud heel pretty much every day because I like
Hmm.
being a little taller and a little loud. Um, I wear black almost every day. My socks don't match. I have killer jewelry, and I wear androgynous perfume, and it smells great.
Hmm.
So I think I'm at a point where for a long time, I coveted that comfort with being traditionally femme, and
Hmm.
now I don't care. And also, I no longer take it when people give me crap for it, because they do, both in the professional world and in the personal world, or like the casual social world. There are comments inevitably from time to time. Now I don't care anymore. I just
Yeah.
don't. For a while, it really itched at me, as I think it does when someone perpetually questions how you physically appear as yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but now it's just sort of, no, if this is a problem, it's clearly your problem and not my problem. So
Yeah.
I'll be over here doing whatever I was happily doing before you
Yeah.
came over and said your shit.
Yeah. I'll be over here owning my greatness and my comfort, and
And
you
peeling chickpeas, you
and, and
asshole.
right, exactly. Peeling the skin off chickpeas while you're judging me. So go after yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Super super interesting. I've never thought about this before. I've never explored this with any of my guests. This is an interesting topic. So thanks for sharing that with us and being honest about how that goes for you and what's outside your comfort zone there.
Well, the just as an addendum, the pop singer, the pop rock person, Billie Eilish,
Hmm.
in the music world right now,
Yep.
is also exploring how to dress her body so she is not objectified, and so that she feels safe in the public eye. And it's been really cool to watch. And I wish that, like, 13-year-old me could have had a her to look at in the news media. I
Yeah.
think that would have been really wonderful. So I love seeing it happen now, and seeing, my many students like dyeing their hair and wearing whatever they want, like, to cover their bodies as they see fit. And I think that's really great.
Yeah. That's super
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So you had mentioned a few minutes ago something that's inside your comfort zone, grabbing the mic, doing poetry, speaking in front of people. That's in your comfort zone. So, hypothetical situation. You have 5 minutes and you get to give a speech to the world. What would you give your speech on and why?
Um, so I wrote Playing the Long Game. And I say that I think it's really important. I'm a change maker. I'm an advocate for social justice. I work in education with an eye towards bettering education and bettering society. Because that's what's fulfilling for me. But I just want humans to be better at accepting that that you must put the work in, regardless of whether you will get to reap the benefits that you so badly wish to see growing. Um, the work must be done, and if your life is spent doing that work and laying the groundwork so that the next generation can benefit, can grow, can evolve in healthy, like, productive ways. It like Greta Thunberg is talking about climate change and trying desperately to reverse climate change. um, your parents and my parents will not live to see climate change addressed or not addressed, but they
Hmm.
can put in the effort now. They can put the money and the attention and the capital, culturally and financially, towards efforts such as that, in hopes of bettering the world for future generations. I really firmly believe in playing the long game. The work that I'm trying to plant the seeds for in education and in change right now, I won't see what the flowers look like. I won't see what the fruit on the trees looks like. I might not even see it fully grown as a tree, but
Hmm.
it has to get planted. It has to. And I love immediate satisfaction too, like,
Hmm.
nothing is as good as biting into the apple, and the apple is delicious. But, sometimes, like, you're growing the apple for someone else, and you have to find fulfillment there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important topic. And as a parent, as you mentioned earlier, that I'm a parent, it's something to think about. Like a lot of the things that I can make a choice on today it just won't be for me It'll be for my child and my a child's children, maybe. Like these things, like you said, these things are the long game, and you just have to. You can't always be thinking about. I think as humans, we're just built for the bite the apple now, bite the apple now, bite the apple now, which is, I think, a big reason that we have a lot of the challenges we have. Is it's all about how quickly can I get this done? How much money can I make right now? And what's the thing that feels good to me in the very moment, versus, like you said, taking care of the planet, taking care of our political system, taking care of all the other things that are going on. And I think that would be a really cool speech to hear you deliver. It's an important message.
Well, and also it's so easy to then like give into the despair of it, like, oh, it won't happen, I'll never see it, it won't work out. And so it just, the Black Lives Matter movement is a really great example, because what's happening to people of color in this country, but particularly Black Americans and like young Black men, is an atrocity. Like it is a homicidal atrocity. And it's very easy to just go like, well, our country was founded on this kind of abuse. And so I guess, like, I don't know how to fix it. I can't fix it. I give up. But instead to say, I can put $5 towards that. I can march towards that. I can see someone on the subway act in this way and put myself in that situation to protect someone else in like a verbal capacity. Like you can step away from the despair and make the choice, and it turns into something like, Black Lives Matter, where it becomes enormous and it takes on a strength that no individual person ever saw coming or could have believed in. But if no one had bothered, all that work would not have happened. The work must be done. The work must be done.
Yeah. Very cool. So next,
the Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram. Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on Talking to Cool People.
This is the part of the show where I like to give the guests the chance to talk about their journey to where they've, the journey and whatever that means to you, and also what you're up to today. So I know you've got a lot of cool stuff you're doing. You shared a little bit about with us. So yeah, Abby, let's know your journey. And you've talked a little bit about New York, Virginia, Michigan, back to New York. What else? Yeah, like what about your journey, like in school, and then what all are you up to today?
Let's see. The journey is, I'm a product of public schools, all the way through New York City public schools, Northern Virginia's public schools. I went to a public university. I went to Michigan State University. I've become passionate about education. It began as a commitment to, I loved working with kids. I started babysitting and spending time with kids when I was in probably late elementary, early middle school. But it turned into me being endlessly fascinated by how education can either be a tool of liberation or a tool of like repression. And I keep chasing that. Like, so what do we do? So how do we manage that? How do we address that? How do we undo that disparity? And so that has chased me from like college to coming back to the East Coast. I've worked in a couple of different organizations in New York City, trying to pursue a career where I feel like I am doing something decent in the long term in the public education system. So public education is, kind of really critical to the journey to where I am now. And then writing, I was a delayed learner. I could not read for the life of me until second grade. I was just miles behind the other people in my grade, but I could write. I could write fine. And then depending on how little I had written, I could remember what I had written. And so I started writing poetry when I was 6. And my parents loved telling this story. There was, some kind of open house at uh, my elementary school, and our teacher had us, read our little poems. And I get up there and I read this poem because everyone, they're first graders. They're writing about, the giraffe they dreamt about or how much they like hot dogs. And then
let's be clear though, 2 very important topics.
Exactly. But then my little 6-year-old ass gets up there, and the poem, my parents still have a copy of it somewhere because it was put in the school calendar. The poem's called Evening Feelings, and it's a reflection on walking up the street under the trees on a summer evening.
Wow.
And I read this poem, and as my parents tell it, all the other parents turned around because, of course, my folks were in the back of the room, and all the other parents turned and look at my parents like, "What the hell? What? What is that? What have you done? What is that?" Writing was always there, and my parents cottoned on to that swiftly. And so I was really lucky. There was never a conversation when I was growing up about oh, you won't be able to make money doing that. It was always are you journaling? You could be journaling. Would you like to write? Do you want some time to write? It was very, I didn't get a regular practice of writing until I was in college, and then they got used to me being home and writing.
Yeah.
But that's been a huge part of my journey as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. Well, this is the part of the show where you get to take the reins for me, and you get to ask me anything, and I will answer it with no caveats. Let me put it this way. I haven't had to do a caveat yet.
Oh, okay.
Not that that's a challenge.
I mean, no, I have an unchallenging question in that capacity.
Okay.
I was thinking about this. So I'm in my late 20s, and so this topic is on the table increasingly in my social circles. What informed your decision to have children?
Ooh, that's a good one. What informed my decision to have children?
Well, you and your partners, because
yes, and
you weren't going to be producing it.
Yes, my wife and I. So, man, I think the decision was, so my wife and I, we got married in 2009.
Okay.
And our daughter was born, we were married in May of 2009, and our daughter was born in February of 2016.
And how old were you guys when you got married?
I was 31 and she was 27.
Got it.
Yep. So she was your age and I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think this is more about the marriage, but I tell everybody, if I would have met my wife any sooner than when I met her, probably wouldn't have worked out. I was not ready to get married, not ready to settle down when I'm pretty close to right about when I met her. So I met her at the right time. And I think for me, getting married in my early 30s was the right time for me. And that leads me to your question is so in 2016, I would have been 38. So I was 38 when we had our daughter, our first child, and our only child as of right now. Mm-hmm. So what led us to the decision was, I think we felt like we'd actually done a lot together with just the two of us. So the advice I give almost everybody that maybe wants children, but also wants to enjoy being married is don't have children right away. Neither my wife or I got married of oh my God, we need to have a family. That's not why we got married. We got married because we wanted to be together. We didn't really have a plan for a kid at all. And then when you say a decision, I think at some point we just realized hey, we're kind of doing our thing. This is all good. Life is great. Could it be better? And is the kid the thing that could make it better? And the answer, I think, is really subjective. So for us, the answer is unequivocally yes. Like, our life is much more fulfilling now having a child. And like, it's like, I'm a big kid at heart. So for me, getting to kind of relive being a kid through the eyes of your own kid and getting to do things like, I'm a geek for like Legos and like, for example, like Just Dance video game on Nintendo Switch. Like, now I get a chance to go and like dance to Frozen with my daughter. Super fun. Like, that's the stuff that I enjoy doing. Like, that's, so for me, like, selfishly, like, I get a chance to do some of the things that, you know, as an adult, you don't really do by yourself. From a decision, I think it was just like, it just felt right. So, you know, we've got a great marriage. We've been together for 6.5 years. It was like, hey, like, this feels like the thing, not that we should do, but that we want to do. And that's the huge difference. Because I grew up in the Midwest where it was kind of you kind of had kids. Like, there wasn't, I don't really know any families that were married that did not have kids growing up. And there's obviously a ton of people, especially here in New York City, who never have families and they just end up, you know, just being married. I think that's great too. So for us, the decision was really around like trusting our instincts and trusting our gut around like, is this going to be the thing that's going to serve our family and what we want to create? And the answer for us has fortunately been yes. I also support people if they say they don't want families. I don't think it's for everybody. And I think, you know, like you said, I know it is a topic of conversation where I don't know if it's not, maybe you can educate me. Is it not cool to have kids now? Or is it like, you just get to be more selfish? Like, how does it go for, you know, a 27-year-old like yourself? Like, what's your thought process around it?
Well, so because I lived in the Midwest, I lived in Michigan, and people find their life partners in college in the Midwest, in that like, they're committed to that, and so it's part of the culture, so it's more likely to happen. And so, you know, marriage earlier, kids earlier, like, that's what's happening. And then, you know, being on the East Coast, that's really not the case necessarily. Some people definitely met partners in college, stayed with them, but aren't in a rush to get married at all. Or haven't, you know, maybe they got married, but like, they're not having kids or not anytime soon. It's a little, people are more ambivalent about marriage on the East Coast. What I will say is, I stopped using dating apps a long time ago, but when like I spent some time with them, and some of the dating apps, one of the questions they ask now is, or the last time I used it, and I presumably they still do, is, you know, do you want kids? You're on the fence about kids, or you don't want kids. And it was a really, really weird situation to be swiping through men who were saying they wanted kids, because it felt like almost a commentary on your body, on the female body. Just looking at it, just like, oh, that's what I would be signing up for. This person has made this decision. Because I, as a woman, given the world that we're in right now, I'm very on the fence about bringing more life into the world. So it's like, millennials, I think we have made ourselves a really interesting snake pit of dating with the apps. But also there's just a lot to consider, especially gender roles continue to be in flux as we seek equity out, but society as a whole is not in pursuit of gender equity. So it's amazing how many different marital dynamics or relationship dynamics I have seen in my age group, in my life, just because of where I am geographically speaking. So it's very conditional. Kids there. I know people who didn't get married and they went ahead and had kids.
Totally.
It's definitely, it's not cool or uncool. There's plenty of joking about being like the cool parents, like being the hipster parents. And my generation also has a lot of debt to manage, and that throws a whole other wrench into having children. So it's weird, but that's also why I ask, because you're just into Gen X, so you probably suffered at the hands of 2008, but very differently than my generation did.
For sure.
So that conversation is different.
No, thank you for the question. I've never really, nobody's ever asked me that. So thank you for the very thoughtful question and allowing me the space to answer it.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Enough about me. I'm taking the microphone back from you. Actually, you get the microphone back, which is where I know you love it anyway, as we talked about earlier. So you've alluded to a few things here, but I'm going to ask you again to be maybe a bit more specific. So Abby, what are you passionate about?
So I have made a list, and the list says reading, making stuff, equity in public schools and the U.S. education system, pushing myself to physical limits in exercise and exertion, winning, and sleeping.
Those are great.
So reading is my favorite goddamn thing to do. Going to the library is so exciting for me, I can't even tell you. Because I know there are new books coming to me, and then I will read them, and then I will have them in my brain. It's the best thing. I love reading so much.
I have a question. I actually have a question for you.
Totally.
Okay. You're at the library.
Mm-hmm.
You're reading a new book you're super excited about.
Uh-huh.
Are you interested in being talked to by a potential significant other while at the library reading?
So I mean, in my library, in my neighborhood, it's fine if that conversation were to happen.
Yeah.
Just because the libraries in my neighborhood are really rowdy because lots of folks who would spend the night in shelters spend their days in the heat or the AC of the library.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's some shouting, there's some weird noises. I've definitely seen porn occurring once or twice on the public monitors. Like, it's the Wild West at the library. So
yeah.
Like, and I'm also not someone who sits at the library to read a book. So
okay.
Someone saw me, like, because what I do is, like, I rifle through the stacks, I pull something, I read the blurb, I maybe read the first couple pages, and I'm skimming. So, like, that's a ripe opportunity for conversation. I've definitely been picked up and picked people up in, like, public spaces, the subway, coffee shop, because of books. So I think it's totally viable.
Yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, it's such a, like, the fact that you're both at a library says something about you right off the top.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't go to libraries, myself included, not because I don't like to read, but because I'm a pure electronics guy and I buy my books from Amazon and download on my iPad or my Kindle. So you're generally not going to find me in a library. The fact that somebody else likes the paper books and likes to go and check out books library means you already have something pretty cool in common.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what are you reading right now?
Let's see. I'm reading, so I like to keep up with young adult fiction because I work with so many middle schoolers and high schoolers. And also I love it. I have a soft spot for it. I like to know what kids are reading. So I'm reading a novel called The Love and Lies of Rukhsana Ali, and it's a book about a young Bengali lesbian who comes out in high school and what happens with her family, managing and not managing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult to read because it's upsetting. I'm reading a book about a poet who was deployed in Korea, and it's nonfiction. I heard about it a couple weeks ago, and I've been reading that. I gave up on on a biography of Elaine Stritch recently because the writing was not super good. I just finished a book by Jeanette Winterson, who wrote Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit last decade or so. She has a new book out that is called Frankenstein, and it's an exploration of sort of AI and preserving brains.
Yeah.
And do humans need bodies? And it was excellent. I've been harassing people about reading it so I can talk about it with them. And then I'm reading something else too.
I have a question for you on the last one you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Is her hypothesis that human beings do need bodies or do not need bodies?
She leaves it open-ended because it's fiction. So she has three.
Oh, it's fiction. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's three different narrative arcs going. One from the point of view of Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein.
Yep.
One from the point of view of a doctor and a researcher in the present day who deal with sort of animating amputated limbs and trying to download and upload brain mass illegally. And then there's a crossover dialogue between the characters, a crossover narrative between the characters in Frankenstein and Mary Shelley, the author.
Interesting.
And so you see the evil of it, you see the potential of it, and you see sort of why people would be excited to study and create it and how risky it is. Very good.
Cool.
Yeah. And then I usually have 4 or 5 books going at a time. So
yeah. The other thing you mentioned is winning, and I know that you're quite competitive, and I know that you are a rock climber, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So what else besides rock climbing do you do that fuels your competitive spirit?
Well, I was an athlete from the age of 6 until I was 19 or 20. So, and like when I quote unquote retired from athletics, I was a rower. The last 10 years of me being an athlete, I was a swimmer and a rower. And so I don't jones for athletic competition anymore. When I'm doing something athletic like rock climbing, it's very much just like me enjoying testing where my body's limits are by myself. And I'm so happy with that.
Gotcha.
I love that there's no stopwatches anymore. I love that there's no one, weighing me, like, doing the sort of checking for like body mass versus muscle, like just the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I'm competitive in terms of, I'm so like, this is such terrible hubris. I want to sound intelligent. I want to sound like the most intelligent person in the room. I want to be successful in my job. I want to get things published. I want to be the best at all times. So which actually, comes up in rock climbing because it is something I only started like a year and a half ago. And so I'm only so far along, and it makes me a little frustrated sometimes that I can't improve more quickly, but
yeah,
I have to live with that.
Can I point out something very ironic about what you just said?
Absolutely.
Your speech that you were going to give is about playing the long game. And now you're talking about how you're impatient.
You're certified to be a life coach. You don't count. Go away.
Sorry, I've got my list. I've got my coach ears on. No, it's funny because your speech is on playing the long game, and then you're frustrated with yourself for not immediately being the best.
Exactly. I live that dichotomy every day.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I'm also very similar, so I totally get it.
Yeah.
Cool. So you do a lot. You've done a lot. What's the thing that you are most proud of?
Having a writing career, even after consciously making the choice to like pursue a quote unquote professional career, having still made a writing career, a poetry career happen, while pursuing professional growth and promotion in nonprofits, in public education. The fact that I've pulled this off, it almost feels like a heist. Like I don't know how I've done that, but I'm so pleased that I have.
I'll be honest with you. I was thinking about this. I don't know any other poet I don't know anybody else who does poetry and actually has a career doing it besides you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks in my life are writers, but they're also, it's always an also. Everyone's an also. Everyone's something else. The times of Ernest Hemingway are like long gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very
congratulations. I think that's super cool. And I don't think we've talked about this yet, but on the topic of writing, I believe that you're about to be published, aren't you?
Yes, my first book is coming out on January 15th. Book of
Amazing.
poetry. Yeah.
And it's all original pieces that you've done?
Yep.
Very
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
What's the name of the book?
It's called Triage.
Oh, that's a great poetry book. That, like, for me, elicits a lot of emotions and visuals just thinking about like that word and how
Yep.
it relates to poetry and writing. Well, one thing we'll be sure and do is um, put in the show notes where people can find the book and the name of it and all that good stuff. But I realized we hadn't talked about that yet, but wanted to let the audience know that, yeah, Abby does have a book coming out here very shortly. We're actually recording this episode on today's the 13th. So you're actually releasing on Wednesday of this week.
Yeah.
Very cool. And
Yep.
is this your first published work?
No, I've been publishing pieces or like little sets of pieces of poetry for a couple of years, but this is my first like printed and bound collection.
Nice. And where will it be in retail anywhere here in New York City?
No, you can buy it online, or if
Okay.
you come to readings I have, and I list my most up to date sort of event listings on my website, you can buy from me in person.
Oh, cool. And
Yeah,
I'll bet
or
you might even autograph it.
yeah, I might. You also, I do have people. There's an email address that can be used on my website, and people can
Mhm.
reach out to me directly to
Oh, very
arrange
cool.
too. Yeah.
Well, a mazel tov and congratulations ahead of time. Very
Thank
cool.
you so much.
So, you ready for a little question that might be a bit vulnerable?
Yeah.
All right. So, Abby, what's something that you're afraid might actually be true about you?
That I'm too much of a control freak to allow myself to be happy.
Okay. And second part of the question, which is always a surprise, is what do you do to compensate?
I try really hard to observe myself. Oh, I seem to be obsessively doing this thing. Is that helping? No? Okay, well, I should probably change it then. Like, I try to manage it to the best of my ability.
Hmm.
Does what I am doing right now, is it necessary? Must I be behaving in this way or doing this thing? No? Or could I do it in a different way that's kinder?
Hmm.
Okay, let's try that. Which, is a real shot in the dark. It doesn't always work. I don't always talk myself out of stuff. But as one of my loved ones said to me once, the whole point of doing something like therapy is to make sure that you're on to yourself. You
Yeah.
know, you know what your bad habits are. You know what you do. You know what you shoplift for, and you see it.
I like that. I love that quote. You know what you shoplift for.
Yeah.
That's great. I was going to say, it sounds to me like you work with either a therapist or a coach or both, because I think like, and I'm thinking about myself that uh, we all have these blind spots. And what I hear in all of that is you're actually pretty aware of yourself and the things that you do are your natural ways of being or your automatic ways of being. And you're at least aware. And you actually have the ability to interrupt the pattern if you want. I think a lot of people, myself included, even now in certain ways, but especially prior to doing some work in therapy and coaching and such, is I just kind of went about and did it. And you didn't even think about like, how am I actually being in the moment? So it's not like you've already got a good system in place for yourself to interrupt your patterns and actually get to make a choice
Hmm.
instead of just being at effect of like, oh, this person said this thing and it bummed me out. So then I'm going to go and feel this way and it's going to ruin my day. But you're like, oh, you're actually aware of how you operate, which is super cool. And it's not actually that common.
Well, I you get tired of being unhappy,
Yeah.
and like there can be a predisposition for anxiety or for depression, or for folks who have like OCD. There are all kinds of things that can be stacked against you that you can only manage to a degree. But then there's the part where it's sort of like, all right, how do I mitigate? If you're taking strong antidepressants but you drink regularly, you're compromising the potency of the antidepressants. You
Yeah.
are still prolonging suffering. And so making that really miserable choice of, I'm very unhappy and I wish I could say it's all the fault of these things that were forced upon me, but I have to make choices that alleviate some of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
and then make
Cool.
that choice over and over and over again.
Yeah. Good. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's, I think that's an important for the audience to know that you always have a choice, even when it feels like you're like, one of the things I run into a lot with clients is like they get overwhelmed by their feelings and what other people do, what it makes making it about them. And you say like, yeah, that's just, and you said this earlier about the clothing, like it's actually usually about the other person, and your feelings are your feelings, and there's nothing wrong with any of the feelings you have. But then it's like, what are you doing? What are you going to do with that information? And how is it going to guide you? And how is it going to inform what you do next? And, I think you have a million choices that you can make from feelings. Some of them can be positive. And as we know, like you mentioned, there's other choices you can make that usually come from feelings that are usually have dire consequences.
But also, it's really critical to remember that you will make choices that are in some ways wrong or not the better choice to make. Like,
oh yeah,
the fact that humans just screw up all the time. And so building a relationship with yourself that allows for forgiveness, having friendships and relationships with people who are capable of forgiveness, who can reflect that back at you, which, like, I'm at the age where that's really what I'm working on, like doubling down on friendships and people in my life who make me better more than they take away from me or take away from the world around me emotionally.
Yeah. That's a great lead into my next question for you, actually.
Okay.
So what's your general philosophy on life?
So I did yoga teacher training several years ago, and I came home one day talking about Confucius, and I was staying with my parents while I did the training. And I was saying, yeah, there's this Confucius quote, wherever you are, that's where you are. My dad said, I mean, yeah, wherever you are, it's where you are, so you better fucking deal with it. And I think that's true. It's not just like wherever you are, that's where you are. It's like, hello, you are here. You are the red dot on the map. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And that's pretty important to me because I'm very good at getting caught up in like, how did I get here? What have I done? What went wrong? And it would behoove me sometimes to just go like, all right, what's the plan?
Yeah. Yeah. And my guess is that you eventually do come up with a plan, but what I'm hearing is a bit of judgment that you maybe spend too much time thinking about the past as opposed to just being in action and moving forward.
Or the future. I can get hung up on everything except the present.
Ah, I see. So you got a good plan in the future and you're good at beating yourself up for the past, but living in the moment is not something that's comfortable for you?
No, I worry about the future. I feel bad about the past. There's no optimism here, sir. I'm getting a relationship with the present, though. The present and I are on pretty decent terms of late.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
It's work.
Just not. Yeah, no. It sounds a bit exhausting, to be honest with you.
Yo, absolutely.
Which you did say one of your passions is sleeping, so that makes sense.
Insomnia was a problem for me for a long time in my teens and early 20s, and I really believe that rest is kind of at the root of everything.
No, totally. There's no doubt. I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
it's hard to operate at any sort of decent level if you're tired. Because like molecular, like as a cellular level, your body just is not there. It's not ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes, and I wanted to check back around with you and see if there's anything else from our conversation today that has sparked anything else that you'd like to share with the audience, or if they're just more generally anything that you'd like to say to the audience at this point before we wrap up.
I really love networking with people.
Mm-hmm.
I love meeting people and then linking them up because of shared interests or passions or resources with other people I know. So I'm always looking to talk to new folks. So if you have listeners who are then like, I have thoughts about X and Y, I'm always interested in groupthink. So, and I encourage everyone to sort of lean into groupthink a little bit.
Yeah.
Certainly as a writer, something I've learned is that yes, writing is a lonely and alone task, but it flourishes when you allow for group setting and group thought to influence it or to edit it.
Cool. And perfect segue to the next thing I was going to ask you is, so you've just made a generous offer to the audience. How can they find you?
I have the Twitter, which I am inept at it, and the Instagram, and the handles are the same. It's my initial.
I believe it's the gram, if I'm not mistaken, not the Instagram. I think it's just called the gram.
All right, sir. It's my initials, AKC, and then poetry on both accounts, and so you can find me that way. I have a website. It's my full name, abigalkirbyconklin.us. And there's an email address on there. But like social media is a great means by which to find me.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I will be sure for everybody listening, if you take a look at the show notes, all this information will be in there as well. Definitely encourage you to connect with Abby. She puts out great content. And last thing, love if you'd leave me and the audience with some words of wisdom. And the caveat is that the words of wisdom need to fit on a Post-it note. So, Abby.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.